Hey, this is Craig Ballantyne from TurbulenceTraining.com and TTFatLoss.com, here with a little video about metabolic resistance training to explain what it is, what we're going for, and some of the cool stuff, some cool ways of thinking about why we do this type of training. So metabolic resistance training a lot of training falls under this umbrella. Really, it means training with resistance, could be body weight, could be weights, could be kettlebells, with incomplete recovery and a little bit higher reps. So obviously it's not powerlifting. And you could even call bodybuilding metabolic resistance training because it does train similar metabolic systems. But you're really focusing on 8, 12, 15, even 20 repetition range with incomplete recovery. And you're going for similar physiological benefits as interval training and even cardiovascular training. You are going to get the same increases in heart rate as you would with more traditional cardiovascular training. But why we do this is because, as my friend Alan Cosgrove explained to me very well, is that if you run a mile, it's probably about 1,500 repetitions. And at 2 to 4 times body weight impact with each stride, that's a lot of stress on your knees and your hips and your low back. And a lot of runners find out the hard way, the dark side of that cardiovascular type training, because they're going through such impact on their joints. Doesn't matter what kind of amazing shoes you have on, if you're doing 15,000 reps in a 10-mile run, it's really going to come back and beat you down. So we switch it over and we do, first of all, interval training. But even if you're running 30 seconds, you might be looking at 100 repetitions there, again, of 2 to 4 times body weight. Now, if you're on a bike, it's better, but if you're running, again, you're going to have that increased volume, and it's not going to be as much as long, slow cardio, but it's still quite an impact. Now, if we switch that out and we go through a total body circuit, or even if we just use an exercise like kettlebell swings alone, if we replace a 30-second sprint with 30 seconds of kettlebell swings, which might be 20 swings, as Alan explained to me over our phone call, that force is transferred over hips, knees, and more muscular. And it's less of an impact. Obviously, we're not landing on the ground with each repetition. But we still have that same metabolic response. We still have our body working hard, increasing our heart rate, and training the same energy systems. So we could literally just do the kettlebell swings in place of interval training to reduce the impact on our bodies and still give us the fat burning results. Now, we can also make it more of a total body muscular resistance training session by adding in push-ups, bodyweight squats, bodyweight rows, all those types of exercises. Now we're training more muscles of the body, and it becomes more like a resistance training session. And depending on the intensity we use, if we use a heavier resistance, we're going to give some people a pretty good strength stimulus. And if we use lighter repetitions, we're going to go more on a cardiovascular conditioning method. So Alan was the first guy that really broke down metabolic resistance training into 2 categories. I'd never really thought of it like that, but he has metabolic resistance training, which is heavier, and you're going to have some soreness from that. And then he has metabolic conditioning, which is lighter, higher repetition stuff, which, when done with incomplete recovery, so it's not 15 reps of tricep kickbacks with an easy weight and then 3 minutes of recovery. That's not the high rep workout we're talking about. But we're talking about 30 reps of close grip push-ups, followed by 15 reps of bodyweight rows with the straps, followed by 20 reps of a kettlebell swing. That type of metabolic conditioning increases the heart rate and works the metabolic systems, and your body doesn't know if it's sprinting or if it's doing this. And actually it does, because it knows it doesn't have the same impact, but your body fat is still going to be lost whether you do interval training or metabolic resistance training, and you might even add a little bit of muscle with the metabolic resistance training. So, just to leave you with a couple of ideas, we've already said you can do the swings, push-ups, bodyweight rows, and squats. That's a 4 exercise circuit. You go through that 4 or 5 times with a little bit of rest at the end of each circuit, and you have metabolic resistance training. You can get a little bit more advanced. You can do kettlebell snatches, followed by push-ups on the straps, followed by pull-ups, followed by bodyweight lunges. And that's going to be more advanced, more intense. And that might be metabolic resistance training for some people. Then you can get into exercises such as snatches, and then followed by maybe a decline push-up or tricep dips, where you're getting about 15 repetitions to failure, and you're really starting to get into metabolic resistance training there, because that's going to cause soreness the next day for some people, followed by chin-ups, and then maybe into a a squat and press with the kettlebell. So you've got your, let's go through that one. So we got, your snatches, and depending on the weight you use, it could be the type of resistance that causes soreness. Then we go into maybe push-ups with the straps, or dips, whatever you have access to. And it's going to be more difficult to do push-ups on the straps than regular push-ups. Then we'll get a little boost here and do some chin-ups. And for most people, doing a set of 10 chin-ups is going to be very difficult. So if you throw in a set of 8 into your circuit there, you're obviously into a higher level of resistance training as well. Then we go single leg squat, back onto a bench, or you can do the full pistol squat. Then we get into that exercise I mentioned, squat press. And those are just a few. I mean, you can do all types of things. You can throw in deadlifts, you can throw in barbell squats with lighter weight. Any of those exercises, total body as much as possible, multi-muscle, done in a circuit, incomplete recovery, or in supersets with incomplete recovery. And that's going to be your metabolic resistance training or your metabolic resistance conditioning, depending on the intensity you put through. And that can replace traditional interval training, which should already be replacing traditional cardio training. So I'm out of breath. I'm Craig Ballantyne for turbulencetraining.com and ttfatloss.com. That website is full of metabolic resistance training workouts to help you gain muscle and lose fat.